Come harvest some basil with me, besties. If you've been thinking about growing your own food, let this be the sign that it is time to get started. Every harvest begins with one seed and a little faith. In Galatians 6 and 9, it let us know, don't grow tired when you're doing good, because in proper season, honey, you're going to reap a harvest if you don't give up. And so, besties, we're going to not give up today, and we're going to move on to getting this basil washed and remove any dirt that came from the garden, any insect debris that might have been on it. We're going to go ahead and get that clean, and then afterwards, we're going to pat it dry to remove any excess moisture so that we can get this stuff dehydrated in the proper time that it needs. But anyhow, once I've done that, now we're going to move on to spreading the leaves and flower buds onto a single layer of silicone dehydrator mask, okay? You may have an oven, you may have a dehydrator like me, whatever you do, just use it, and we're going to talk about the timing in just a moment. But you want to lay everything out evenly just to make sure that it dehydrates evenly when it's time to get it processed. All right, so I know some people have been wondering about growing your own food and whether or not it's really worth it, right? Let me tell you something. Every skill you learn makes you a little more prepared and a little less dependent on the grocery stores. And that is what your girl is aiming for. You don't have to start with a huge garden. I started off with a small garden and began to grow it as I got better. And so you can just start with one basil at a time and learn how to harvest it and learn how to preserve it just like I did. And before long, honey, you will have the confidence in order to step out and do other things just like I did. But let's go ahead and get this dehydrator set for 8 hours at a temperature of 105. And so I have 4 trays of basil leaves and buds that I want to get dehydrated, okay? And so now 8 hours have passed, and besties, it is dry. You see that? You see how beautiful it is? Let me tell you, it smells wonderful too. And so we're going to get my funnel because I am going to put the leaves and the buds into my little bullet. Now, I have a big mixer if I want to use that, but I chose to use this because it's not a big job. Use whatever you have on hand, honey. As long as it get blended up, that is all that matters. Okay, and so the way that I like to do it now, there are many ways you can do this, but the way I prefer to do it is to go ahead and get my basil blended up while it is dry. Some people like to throw their salt in it right now, but honey, it's all about your preference, and what you do in your kitchen is your business, just like it is mine. But anyhow, we're going to go ahead and take some of this sea salt, and I used a total of 2 cups of sea salt to 1 cup of basil, just in case you want to write this little recipe down and to use it. And so all I did, honey, was just take my time to get it all nice and blend it up and smooth. And in just a moment, we're going to pop this right back into the dehydrator for a temperature of 105 for 1 more hour, just to make sure all of the moisture is out of there. And honey, it smells so good. You know your girl had to sniff a little bit, honey, because my house, it is blazing right now. I love the smell of basil, and even more so when I'm making something with the basil. But anyhow, we're going to go ahead and get this basil salt put on this mat. And I had a total of 4 mats, y'all, that I was able to do. So this right here is the first 2. And so now I'm going to add in my 2nd cup of sea salt because I still have a little bit more basil left. And I want to go ahead and get that blended up so that we can put all of it into the dehydrator and get it going. Now, look, if you don't have a dehydrator, I know some people who use their ovens. You can use your oven at a low setting to get the same job done, okay? You just have to watch out just to make sure your stuff don't burn. But I love my dehydrator because, honey, I can just set it and go on about my business. Then that's the way I like it. But anyhow, we're going to go ahead and put that salt basil on these last 2 trays and get it spread out evenly. Now, you know your girl had to stick my finger up in there and get a taste. And honey, let me tell you, it is seasoned to perfection. I love this stuff. But anyhow, we're going to go ahead and stick that back in there for 1 more hour at a temperature of 105. And y'all, it is all done and it is ready and it's set to go. You see how beautiful that is? Yep, that little bullet blender, honey, did it all. It didn't take the big one. So just use whatever you got. But now we're going to go ahead and empty this salt into the jars. And once again, I had a total of 4 that I was able to create with 1 cup of basil leaves and buds and 2 cups of sea salt. Use whatever kind of salt you got, but honey, this is what I like to use, sea salt, girl. And honey, look at it. I am going to be seasoning some of everything with this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some in a container to use for my daily cooking, and then I'm going to make just a little bit more and use that into some Mylar bags to have for long-term storage in case I want to use some later. But y'all, this is the finished product, and that came all from a simple basil plant in my yard. Look, I got more that I'm going to do a little bit later, but I just wanted to do this little bit just for you and share the fun. All right, y'all, happy gardening.